Richie, I forgot to write down on your list. We also have Lieutenant David Albee. We have Sergeant Austin Munson, and we have our Community Resource Officer, Kayla Knott. So thank you guys so much.
You all and supporting this effort.
I suppose also. So, you know, we can all, I think, sit up here and talk about the tremendous improvements that we've experienced in downtown, and you know, all the things that we've done in coordination with the mayor's office to improve safety and vibrancy. But I don't think any of that really matters after what happened on July or January 11th to 12. We recognize that I think really, I think gave us a true understanding of what really there's a lot more work that needs to be done as it relates to impacting the perception of safety, actually delivering on that promise of safety. I can assure you that there has been a lot that I think Bowser will go into. There has been a lot of additional enhancements that we've gone into safety in this area, both lower downtown and upper downtown, focusing obviously more intently on the mall. But we are going to continue our commitment to provide safety here in this community and the broader community. We have some strategies more effective. We continue to coordinate with the mayor's office and our other partners. Obviously, very pleased with our partnership with the Downtown Denver Partnership and the assistance that they provide. But we recognize that there was some significant harm done to this community, not to mention the damage that was done to some families that can never be repaired. And so we certainly recognize that there's a lot of that needs to be done to regain, I think, your trust and perception of safety in this areas.
First of all, thank you so much for having us here and inviting us into your space. We're really excited to talk to you today about downtown safety. I'm Kimberly Bowser, I'm the commander of District 6. To echo the chief's comments, we were really pleased and excited about 2025 because of the improvements that we've made as far as our crime stats go. And then, when we had this incident occur, it was very shocking to all of you, shocking to us. We had already implemented a few things as far as additions to the mall area, the downtown area, which I can talk about if you'd like, as well as, things that were added after. So we have a lot of things on the mall that are specific to the downtown core, specific to the mall that the rest of the district doesn't have. We have our motorcycles. As I mentioned, we were really excited to implement some new changes to the mall starting in January in anticipation for the construction to be done and the mall to be reopened this summer. We're very excited. We did add 2 officers to the mall on bicycles. So that's something that you'll see. We're also asking our mounted patrol to be down here a little bit more frequently. I think they were down here several years ago. And then with the mall reopening, we are also committed to the vibrancy of downtown, and that's something to draw people that want to come downtown is the horses. We also have footbeats that walk the mall now, whereas we didn't have as many before. Now we have them. It has been cold, so if you haven't seen them, I've asked them to pop into the businesses and introduce themselves and say hi and answer questions and things like that. But I just wanted to assure you that we do take the safety of downtown extremely seriously. We are very committed to continuing our efforts with your own partnership and the partnership of everyone here to make sure everyone feels safe and sees that we're making that effort. Obviously, our goal is to not only reduce the crime, but reduce everyone's fear and perception of crime. So that's something that we're going to be working very hard on.
I think I'll jump in here real quick, but I want to make sure, I'll keep my remarks brief, but I want to make sure to answer all your questions and get them answered. First, I want to say thank you to the partnership for hosting us here today. It's really helpful to have us being able to meet here on the mall and in this space. I wanted to talk to you about it. Thank you to Chief acknowledging the trauma of the stabbings and what occurred that day. Despite all the efforts, despite our excitement, despite us talking about all the improvements that have been made, that was kind of all lost when we experienced those traumatic events and those stabbings. I want you to know how that was impactful to us immediately once we saw and heard about the crime. We had DPD, we were all on the phone that night. We were all working very hard to gather all the resources from the response that night, the investigative response, the patrol response, but then also what we were going to do in the hours in the day following, what we were going to be doing. We were on a constant call, we were in constant communication, we were upping, we were bringing in everyone we could on the mall. And because of those efforts is why we were able to apprehend the individual so quickly. But it was, and then we wanted to maintain a presence on the mall. So we're all working on what does that maintained vigilance around this look like, and continuing through when we start opening the whole mall. And Commander talked about that, you know, having bicycle patrol, having, you know, our mounted unit, having walk-in foot beats, that's something out. We also, and many of you know about our street engagement team, formerly our street enforcement team. We've had them out here since then, 7 days a week. Since the event, 7 days a week. We're evaluating that. We're going to make sure they're a constant presence here on the mall as well. But that's what I wanted to add, but definitely want to have some time to answer your question. But pass it over to Ryan, partnership.
Well, I just want to say that the emotional roller coaster that we've all been on in the last few years as the mall construction has gone on and COVID and all these things was highlighted most just obviously when these events occurred, and you could see it in the faces of everybody that works in this office. The passion that everybody brings to work every day in this office was just so prevalent when they saw how good we've been doing, and statistically we keep talking about how you know, the stats are so great, and then this happens and we all just got knocked off of that perch. And I think from the Downtown Denver Partnership, we want to make sure that we're working closely with the community, we're working closely with our partners at the city and the Denver Police Department and RTD, and making sure that we are a supplemental service and that we're doing as best we can to handle these quality of life issues, to then allow DPD the freedom to be able to handle all these other instances and be present and be safe. And that incident and the aftermath with what happened in the you know, the following week and 2 weeks even later, to see how Denver PD, the city of Denver, RTD, everybody came out and just said, yeah, we know, and here's more, here's some more resources, here's everything we're gonna do now, and the engagement and the outpouring of support was just amazing and something I've never seen before. So I want to thank the city, thank Denver PD, RTD, all of our partners, the community, everybody's being very good and understanding that we're not stopping. This is all we're doing is hitting the accelerator a little bit harder now and adding a little bit more to it. So we will get the safety back, and we'll get the feeling of safety back as well.
If I could just add, hi everyone, my name, for those who don't know, my name is Sterling Sims. I'm the Senior Outreach Manager for the Mayor's Office here in District 10. And I want to echo what Commander Bowser and Director Saldante mentioned earlier. We were and still are excited for 2025. This community is a serious priority for us in the Mayor's Office. The Mayor actually has a life-size poster of the entire 16th Street Mall lining the walls of his office that he's been tracking to keep updated on the progress of this construction. This was really personal to us. I am a Mojo resident myself. We have been seriously focused on maintaining safety in this community. And when we saw this terrible incident happen, our entire office was mobilized to try to reestablish that security and that feeling of safety in this town. You've heard us echo a lot about our vision for a vibrant city, and that doesn't happen if we don't have a safe city on top of that. Downtown Denver really is the living room of this city as a whole. It is a huge driver of economic success for our city, and I just want each and every one of you to understand that the event that happened a few weeks past, tragic example of how our mental health system here in Colorado and across the city of Denver is failing. People are falling through the cracks. Unfortunately, the perpetrator in this incident was not connected with the services that he needed. He was not connected with a treatment bed. And unfortunately, when he ultimately was no longer under the care of his case managers, it opened up the window of opportunity for this heinous crime to occur. So we are really laser focused now on rebuffing our efforts to bring mental health support services to those most in need, particularly in this community. And we just want to echo that the crime that took place a couple weeks ago was completely unacceptable, and we are laser focused on making sure that it doesn't happen again and that this community is as safe as possible. So really, thank you all so much for being here today and staying engaged, and whatever questions you may have, we're more than happy to answer them. So thank you all. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm representing the Newstetter building, which is between Stout and California, right where it happened. I actually walked by the guy twice at the convention center about 20 minutes before those attacks happened. And we at our block, and I don't know about if anyone's from dry goods building here, we're not seeing anything. We call when things happen, and it's anywhere from 2 to 4 hours if cops even show up. Our building, you know, we beefed it up with security, but the homeless like to encamp. They like to do meth in our lobbies, which is a parking, the back lobby is a parking lot, a parking garage. It puts people from the convention center in danger. We're in constant danger. We have people who show up and, you open your door and there's a homeless guy in your building on your doorstep naked. We're not seeing it on our block. Maybe Lodo is getting all the attention, but our block we've seen nothing. And, we get no response when we call. It's extremely dangerous and we're sick of it. And, for all the mayors talking about things have improved, our block has not. And we've asked PCL to take down the green wrappings because I don't know exactly where she was stabbed, but you can't, they're blind corners because of the construction. We've had the longest construction of anyone, and we just don't feel safe in our building anymore. And they have asked, my building is out. We have people moving out of our building because they don't feel safe anymore. And it's just gotten to the point we can't take it anymore.
Does someone want to respond to that or respond to the question?
So in the immediate term, what I would say, when you
Can you stand up and speak, do you mind? Thank you.
When you have instances of folks encamping in any areas here downtown, the first thing I tell people is not necessarily to call 911, but to call 311. Our director of encampment response, Andy Phelps, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, every minute of every day, he has the encampment map up. When a 311 report is placed, that automatically pops up on that encampment map, and that's what we use to determine enforcement and enforcement time.
It's not necessarily encampments. We have them just walking around. Like there's blanket guy who hangs out on the corner of CBS, and as soon as he sees cops, he goes around the corner. If the security, the guys in the blue, show up, but they're hanging out there all the time. Like we've all named them because we know who they are.
Right. I don't know if anyone from safety has anything they can
Well,
add.
and I think there's also something to consider. We have 3 different areas of areas we need to, or areas of responsibility, if you will. Obviously, what encompasses your building, and anything within that specific footprint is going to be your individual security or whoever is responsible for that at your building. If somebody is inside a doorway, that's typically in your area, which means that's trespassing. So that's going to be somebody from your building would have to at least initially contact and then potentially DPD. But if it's outside of that area in the public realm, that's going to be for the Clean and Safe app, and that will be for our security team. So I hope everybody has the Clean and Safe app on their phones because that will get our security team to that issue. But again, if it is in your property, our security team has no authority there. And so that way that it becomes like personal, like the building security as well as DPD for trespassing. So.
I live at the Colorado one, and I didn't know a lot about what happened here, but I kind of heard about it. And this is, I guess, what this is focused on. What I think y'all are missing, I love the police. You guys are awesome. I think you are fantastic. What I think everybody is missing is the normality now. I walk out of my building and it is normal to see violence for me. On a weekly basis, I will see something that is dramatically bad. 15 lines lined up that are very heavy, and someone pops up and he grabs one and throws it at people on the sidewalk, throws one into the traffic on Waywater Street and runs off. My friend comes, somebody picks up something, they smash it into her car, smash her car up, cuts her. I said, should we call the police? She's like, why? What are they going to do? What do they do if they find him? He's not going to be responsible. So normality is this stuff is happening. And my question is, I only have one question. Where's the mayor? Like right now today?
You probably know where he is. I wouldn't be here if I was in either.
My question is, if you could give any timelines of when that fellow was on the street and you started hearing about it and what you guys did, just from the time first thing happened until you called.
That's fair. So I think, so the first incident happened at, I think, 5:10 in the evening on the 11th. We didn't know about it until probably close to 6:30 because he took himself to the hospital and didn't tell anybody. It was the hospital that actually called us. The next incident, I think, happened about 30 minutes later. I think the first incident was on Tremont, the second incident was on California. And I think that was the brief description of the suspect there. About half an hour later at Lawrence, that is where the third incident happened. The second, as we were, occurred. Again, very brief description. And then we find out about the victim at the hospital. And sort of comparing very brief descriptions and then starting to look at video. RTV was a great partner in helping us capture video. Both Plaza had a lot of good videos. So there was a video that we were able to piece together to actually, I could see the suspect kind of moving from place to place. And so we had, one, we had a very good description of the suspect. Two, we had a strong belief that all three of those incidents were connected. That is when, so it was probably about 6:30 or so that evening on 11th that we began to flood the theory with resources. So that just about all of District 6's resources, we brought in resources from other districts, other committed resources. So our SWAT team, our game units, were focused here. And that focus was maintained through Sunday. And it was Sunday evening, the last incident occurred. And unfortunately, we were not able to stop it, but we actually did see it happen. Our presence, we were able to actually see the individual run from the person who had just stabbed with the knife in hand. We were able to catch him steps away, and start to provide medical assistance, and that will do more work with that as well. So that's kind of the time frame of events and how we kind of ramped up our response. Unfortunately, it was a bit delayed because of that initial incident not being reported to us until after 6 o'clock. And then, like I said, that presence remained until he was in custody, and there is still a significant presence that remains in this area.
I want to add a little bit to Chief's answer. One of the things that we did implement at the beginning of the year, we really have a focus on consumer service and reducing the fear of crime, reducing the perception of crime. One thing that we did is we have our detectives now on 10-hour shifts. We have detectives working in District 6 from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. most of the days of the week. 6 days usually, sometimes we have a 7th. And we had just implemented that because when people need to come in and see the detectives, if they work 7 to 3, it's very difficult to do so. You have jobs, you have to take work off, things like that. So we felt very strongly that we needed to increase our hours and that we have like a staggered shift. We had detectives working that evening. So right after that first incident, the detective came out and responded very quickly. That detective was able to increase the size of the crime scene, get photos out immediately to the officers and as well as citywide. That was something that we were fortunate to have to be able to pay the person that we're looking for. Just to add to what we've already done. So we had that in place and we were really grateful that that was there.
Do you mind speaking up too for those of us in the back of the room? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you if you have additional cameras with new construction.
We do, and we have a significant number of cameras along the mall already. We've obviously enhanced that through the construction. The other thing that is that we have what we call real-time crime center. So all of the cameras in the city, we have operators that are looking at those cameras throughout the day and being able to kind of vector off the search terms that they see on these cameras. Specific to the 16th Street Mall, obviously there's thousands of cameras around the city, both traffic cameras and other security cameras. So it's tough for them to do all at the same time. But these that are along the 16th Street Mall, we have district staff, so we have clerks that are working the clerk's desk that have a view of that camera all the time.
So let me just step in here for a moment. If you guys could stand up, and if you're comfortable saying your name and where you live, that'll help, and then we'll give them a chance so they can take additional notes. That'll make it a little bit better. So not sure who had their hand up next, but we'll go here, and then I'll get you, and I'll go back here because I see your hands. Go ahead.
Sure. Leva Sunshine, resident of Lerner Place, 5051 Lerner. Just curious, as you outlined, Commander and Chief, what would it have taken to issue a reverse 911 warning to residents downtown as you put together this pattern of crime going through that 24-hour period?
And I think that's just a notification to dispatch, and then it's dispatch that does that. I'm not sure the logistics of that process, but that would come from this.
Was that a scenario under which you would have done that? People were going out as this was happening on the various blocks.
No,
Unknown to us that there were crimes being committed within blocks.
that is a good point. I don't know that occurred, and if it didn't occur, that's something that we obviously need to look at.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for engaging the community. My name is Wendy Heath. I live at the Spire, and I just want to kind of ask a couple questions about the vibrancy of downtown and people feeling safe coming here and living here. I know that you've all spoke about that each separately, and I think just walking from the Spire here this afternoon, in the middle of the afternoon, 2 mental health crises as we're walking here. And screaming, throwing things, that's not vibrant, and it doesn't feel safe, particularly now that we know what happened. I'm a runner, so I went down on a paddle run yesterday along Spear, right in the heart of the city. There's tents everywhere there, trash, people using drugs. I'm a female that's by myself. I'm also a U.S. Marshal of 31 years. And I'm afraid for my safety, or that I'm gonna have to use my weapon. So I know if I'm afraid, that there's a lot of people afraid to be here. Our friends won't come down because they don't want to come downtown. And I know that just speaks to, so many people that live here. And so I know you spoke, Mayor's office, I wish the mayor could be here today. But you talked about, what you're doing with the mental health crisis, because I really think that's at the heart of why so many of us aren't feeling very safe. And for good reason. 2 people were murdered in our living room. If somebody's murdered in my living room, it's a big deal. The mayor should be here today. Right. And it's a big deal for all of us that live here. Whether you're female or male, you're single, you have friends, doesn't matter. We don't feel safe here. So how do you live here? How do you work here? And how do you invite people back? Fix this problem, this mental health, homeless problem, because that is what it is. It's a problem. It's a city problem. And just having police here and walking by people that are having these issues is not fixing the problem. It's just having the presence. It's not really fixing the problem, because then when the police isn't here and we're walking around, the problem's still there. So I guess I want to know for myself, tell my friends to come back downtown to the Spire where I live. What can we do as citizens? And also, what are you going to do for us to let us feel safe here now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I do want to speak to what we're doing. I think the best way to understand that work is really to ground it in what happened in the event that took 4 weeks back. This was a gentleman who had been in and out of jail, not only in our jurisdiction, but in Adams County, in the state of Kentucky, in the state of Texas, numerous occasions. I mean, this guy had several charges racked up over and over and over again. And when he entered Denver County, our DA's office quickly determined that this man was not fit to stand trial. He was mentally deemed incompetent. They requested a certification of incompetency going forward. The issue is that if we don't have any charges that we can lodge, we can't exactly keep this man in perpetuity without charges. That's not logistically possible. It's not legally possible. And so what ultimately happened was the state had handed him off to their drug court liaison program called Bridges of Colorado. The issue with Bridges is it's not a residency program. It's simply a case management referral program. So he was given a case liaison whose job was then to communicate with this gentleman and connect him to the services that he needed. Unfortunately, they were unable to do that. They found him a bed and a place to stay, but it is an entirely volunteer program. And ultimately, at some point, he left that facility, and Bridges actually lost contact with him. They didn't know where he went. They didn't have a way of communicating with him, and unfortunately, he just fell through that crack, and ultimately, he wound on to commit the heinous crimes that he did. What we're doing as a city is we put up what's called Roads to Recovery. I don't know, you may have heard a little bit about it in the press, but it is what we call a coordinated intervention pipeline to actually fix all of those cracks that he fell through. Unfortunately, in this scenario, the state got to him before we did. And so he was indoctrinated into Bridges and not Roads. With Roads to Recovery, we have an intense outreach process where we continue to maintain touch points with these people that we're working with, even if they don't like to maintain contact with us. We have a different philosophy than what is typically seen in the case management network. A lot of case managers would rather them participate in their own voice and at their own pace. But sometimes when you allow that to happen, people fall through the cracks and incidents like this occur. So what we would have done and what we are building with our case management pipeline under Roads is a coordinated intervention pipeline where we will intake a person and we can get them into a treatment bed on that day. We've spent the last year and a half building relationships with service providers across the state, including the one that this gentleman was engaged with, to make sure that we can keep them engaged, we can keep them in their beds, and we can connect them with services on the spot. Unfortunately, our program only has about a $6 million budget. It's not particularly scalable right now, but in the months and years ahead, that's what we're going to be focused on doing, is actually building out that case management and care pipeline so that folks don't fall through that crack again. And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot more money on our end. It's also going to take a lot more coordination at the state level. This is something that they need to be a part of the conversation with as well. But that's just some of the mental health work that we've been doing, and it's certainly not going to be a quick fix, but at least we are now on the right path of building those systems that we need in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again. It's truly tragic the extent to which this was an avoidable crime. This was an avoidable crisis. If we just had the infrastructure and the case management network in place to help these people and to keep them off of our streets, it just wasn't there this time. The state got to them before we did. And it's a tragedy, and it's something that we really hope doesn't happen.
And what about all the homeless people around, living on our streets,
So,
drugs?
unfortunately, there are some state guidelines there as well. We actually have labeled this as a permanent closed area for homeless and camping. So any kind of permanent structure that we build.
You just built one down the street.
And we can have those removed. If it's any permanent structure, we can go in and enforce on the
I
spot.
reported on 311 3 times now.
On that same encampment. We can definitely look into that and make sure that gets clear. Because this is a completely closed spot.
We don't
So if you
report it.
see-
These are just stories. We don't report this stuff anymore. It's so common.
And that's.
And it's-
There's a communication
And that's
going.
where I would definitely encourage you to report on that 311 website or on the Clean State
Go to
app.
311 and we have an agency for this, but that agency is over here and they do this and we can't interfere with them and stuff. Just solve it.
And clean and safe take days or weeks for them to go.
It's fighting time. I mean, you're using words.
And so
Let me finish. You're using words like coddling people and setting up programs and keeping. We want you to fight crime. I've even heard it here. You know, people do something and just say, no, I'm boss, doesn't pass legislation. We want crime to be avoided, and you're not doing it.
Well, I have to push back there because we are fighting crime.
Okay.
We have made, more arrests than I could ever calculate. We review data all the time. We are responding to the crimes that are occurring, not just in this community, but in communities everywhere. The gentleman over there said something about normalcy. Violence has become a norm, and I don't think that any community should settle for that. I think that we should be reporting all violent events, anything that makes you feel unsafe. I think you should report it to give us the opportunity to respond to it. And there are laws that we can use in order to hold those accountable. I don't think that this community should settle for violence being normal, nor do I think Washington Park should settle for violence being normal. And we have been, and we will continue to be responsive to that. And there are two things that I believe in. One, I believe in surety of consequences. So you give us an opportunity to investigate something, identify a suspect, put them in jail. That happens all the time. And I think that surety of consequence, I think, is resounding. The other thing is certainly there are folks that have mental health challenges that I think are involved in what they are doing to our community. But we have to contact them first in order to direct them to the services that the mayor's office talked about. So I just would tell everybody, continue to call us, to continue to hold us accountable for fighting crime and taking care of this problem.
Chief, my name is Clay Benziger, and I've lived at Brooks Tower and owned at Brooks Tower since 2010. And I really appreciate what you, the commander, and all the officers and everyone under your purview is doing. I think you are fighting crime. One thing that I've really seen a lack of, though, since I moved here, and I grew up in rural Weld County where I knew the police officer's name because I went to high school. When I moved here, I became a ham radio operator, so I could listen into your department and see the awesome work you're doing, whether that was Occupy Wall Street and the restraint you used clearing Civic Center Park, or whether that was just trying to understand why I saw 100 police cars going after what turned out to be road racers. Anymore, we don't get that visibility in your department. Since you've gone to encrypted radios in 2019, even the news media doesn't know why there was a sewer gas explosion until people started reaching out saying, why were there fireballs downtown? With a shooting in my building recently by a legally carrying citizen restraining some violent criminal, I don't know about it because unfortunately the 15 police cars that showed up to my building couldn't say anything. And with this, really communication is a big problem. We've heard timelines, and I appreciate that you gave us the timeline now, but the fact that news media couldn't give us that, reverse 911 is fantastic for those carrying cell phones, but for those of us who would like to ensure our community feels safe, they understand, hey, naked guy who's outside of the newsstands, the police are on their way. Yes, we called it in 30 minutes ago. They got a big backlog right now, but we hear that they at least heard the message. Because certainly that's one key thing when we live downtown. I can see for miles from my condo. Quite often I will see your officers responding to something after I call in gunshots, and I see they're on the wrong block and call 911 and go, hey, just a heads up, but that car is actually over here now. Don't know if you guys know that, just want to make sure you know. So there's really a big communication problem there, and I appreciate Representative Valdez, I see her in the room, with bills like 21-1250 to hopefully get news media encryption keys so they can at least report on the crimes, so we can have a police blotter, if you will. But news media still can't report on the crimes, as I understand. They still can't hear Denver police. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing, but it's frankly in vain as far as I'm concerned as a citizen. If I have no visibility into it, you're just kind of the chimera. So I really ask that you find some way. You've got mobile data terminals, you've got Nextel phones, you've got a lot of ways to prevent putting private information out on your radios. Let us hear where you're at so that we know we're safe. Let us understand that you're dealing with 150 people having crises right now, not just the 2 we see. And that would go a long way to helping us understand that you're not just doing whatever.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Clay, for that. We have a donut, or upper downtown, business owner, so I'd like to give him an opportunity, a different perspective.
My name is Gary Mantelli. I run business on 16th and Glenarm West Saloon Kitchen. My son Tommy, he's our leader as well. What happened 2 weeks ago was, we all know, was terrible, but it's not a new problem. And what's happening on the streets in terms of homelessness and drugs and mental illness, that's not a new problem. ever since we've been in business. We deal with it every day, all day. In fact, recently we had someone who overdosed and they would have died in front of the restaurant, didn't come into the restaurant, they were just overdosing. We were able to help by providing Narcan.
Yeah, one of our managers administered Narcan to a person experiencing homelessness, I assume. But upon reaching out to 911, when the ambulance came, she had already come back. You know, Narcan very fast acting. I think she received 2 doses, both of which we provided because we carry it in our office because this is such a common issue.
Yeah, let me finish that. That's a great point. So this is the problem though, and I've talked to the partnership about this. I've talked to the construction people about this, the blind spots, getting the curtains down, making it a lot safer so that my family, my guests, my team members, our community, the people that come to our restaurant can maneuver safely, and they don't feel that way. So as a business owner, the delays, the events that have happened in Denver since COVID, and it's been multiple, we all know what they all are. It's lucky we're even here, or any business is even here. It's almost impossible to continue. And I don't feel like the mayor in particular has taken that very seriously. When you say this is the limelight, the bedroom, whatever it was that you said, no, I don't feel that. I'm sorry, I don't. There were 2 grains that were given, and they were my lunch sale, to be honest, on one day. That's not help. I've made 3 phone calls to the mayor's office. I've not been invited to come speak yet, or even had a response except for the one that says, "We got your message," which meant nothing. So I say all this because I own another restaurant that is in another city in Colorado, and if we don't fix this problem, we're gonna have a bigger problem, because when they say, "Where's your other place?" and I tell them, they go, "We don't go downtown." Everybody says that. We don't go downtown. That's Pueblo, Colorado Springs, north of Denver. It's viewed not as this fun place to go to. It's scary. So we're gonna be living on tourism, and that's it if we don't fix this problem. This problem has been here, what happened 2 weeks ago, terrible, but it's been here even much longer than that, much longer.
You're a business owner, right?
Yeah.
We have another business owner too. Thanks. Does anyone want to respond to, you don't have to, I'm just asking if you want to respond to Gary, feel free.
No, I would just say that, I know there's a lot of talk about the mayor not being here. The mayor does care, I think, immensely about the challenges down here. And, not only, does he have a number of, vibrant goals and goals as it relates to addressing the housing challenge, but he's also held the safety department accountable to a number of safety goals. And so I think it was the pursuit of those safety goals that got us to a point where we can say that we have significantly reduced violent crime in the city of Denver. And I know, again, that means very little to people on 16th Street Mall who know what just happened about a little less than a month ago. But he does recognize that in order to attract businesses, in order to increase vibrancy, in order to do any of those things, that he needs to have a safe city. So that has been his focus.
Go ahead.
First of all, I really think that passing the blame onto the state and saying this perpetrator just fell through the cracks is very dismissive and disrespectful. 2 families are in mourning because of, I think, failure among multiple avenues, right? I think there's a big kind of preference for favoring the kind of small group of people that kind of cause the most amount of problems and connecting them with services and counselors and caseworkers, as opposed to prioritizing keeping the community safe. And, so when you're talking about the perception of safety downtown, let's maybe kind of focus on actual safety. And my big question is, where is John Walsh? Where is the DA? Because I think there's a big catch and release problem here, where the same people are getting arrested over and over and over again. And it's kind of like, like if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, and I think this applies here, it's probably like only 20% of the people, like the criminals that are committing like 80% of the problem in this city, but they're just being caught and released. And that's like, this affects everybody here. 2 families are in mourning because somebody couldn't keep this guy. You're saying the state couldn't, there were like no charges that you could hold him on, when he was arrested multiple times, even on sexual abuse, like sexual assault charges. So he was just like, it was prioritized his mental health and connecting him with a social worker as opposed to keeping the community safe. And that's the big problem here. And I really don't blame the police on that. I kind of blame, I think there's multiple, like the DA, it's a big issue. That's gonna affect all of us here, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I will say that it was an incredible system failure to include everybody up here. I will say that I've met a number of times with DA Walsh, who's just recently taken office. I know that he is concerned about safety in this city. I know that he is in particular concerned about addressing violent crime, and so I don't think that you will see violent crime suspects, being quickly released so that they can go back to their ways of victimizing the community. So I think he and I are going to be strong partners as it relates to making sure that people that are intent on harming our community are kept away from the community. I actually would suggest that probably less than 20% that is responsible for the large amount of crime that occurs in the city.
Do you want to add to your 80-20 comparison there? I think you're right, and I know in fact that's what we look at when we're looking at crime, and we see, and we coined the term high resource utilizers. We have a lot of the folks you see on the mall, a lot of the folks you see, they're committing low-level crimes, trespassing, grenading in public, open drug use. And our officers do take action on those. A lot of times it's writing them tickets because that's the level of penalty that has been associated with those crimes. And we see them cycle in and out. The reason that we look for the public health approach to try to get the root cause of the problem, untreated mental illness, drug addiction, solved is because the criminal system is not serving these individuals. The criminal system does not have a penalty to keep them in custody. Does not have a penalty, so it's common. If you see someone using a small amount of fentanyl on the mall, they will get arrested or they will get charged for it, but they'll be out of the jail on the same shift of the officer that arrested them. True. That's just the nature of the that's where the penalty phase is in, and that's mandated by the law. It's not mandated by what the DA can do or not do. So that's those low-level things. Now, violent crime, higher-level things, yes, we are working hard to try to keep those folks in jail, but that's why we go back to let's try to treat the root cause. Let's try to get those folks into some sort of treatment to where they're not out on the street committing those low-level crimes day in and day out. Sounds good.
The lady over here in the corner, sorry, I can't see you from here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jen Hupel. I live at the Colorado, and I want to thank you, Chief. I was at Wash Park yesterday during that unfortunate shooting, and it was very fast and professional. I was at Wash Park walking because I haven't felt super safe doing that here. And I have a list of questions to ask about 911 response times, conflict safety. It boils down to this. Do you have the funding and staff and resources that you need for the long term to make sure that we are fully playing all the safety resources necessary within that department that's citywide?
Yes. So right now we are funded to have 1,639 officers to cover the entire city. All of the workload metrics that I've ever gone through have identified that is a correct number. We don't have 1,639 right now. We're in probably the high 1,500. So we're about 95-96% capacity for our department. We're continuing to hire. We have 3 classes that are in right now that are set to graduate this year, and another 3 classes that we will hire through the academy this year. The first one starts in April. So we are moving towards that fully staffed number, but I do believe that number is appropriate to address the challenges. And again, like I said before, we look at our workload daily, and we make those shifts as appropriate. We recognize that there's a greater workload demand, say in District 6, for instance. We can shift resources to District 6 or District 3 where Washington
I think
Park
like a
is.
lot of people here, I've had to engage with call 911 probably 5 times in the past 2 years. I've never gotten through 911 on the first try. I've always been put on hold, which is a very sinking feeling when you're in the midst of an emergency situation. But secondly, I know response time is hard, which is why it makes me wonder if we have the appropriate staffing level, how able our needs are.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the staffing in Denver 911. That's actually a separate agency from the police department, but I do know that they are continuing to work on making sure that they have folks to answer both the 911 calls as well as the non-emergency calls.
I will answer on the 911, please. So post the pandemic, the 911 experience, 911 call center experience, but a lot of department experience, they had a mass resignation of folks. We were down to like half of our staffing. We were very hard to supplement that staffing, increase pay, do a lot of things to get that. We were back at near high 90% on staffing, but we're still finding that it's not enough. In fact, my team is looking at trying to find some resources to staff and add. We're looking at adding another 19 folks there, and we're working on that right now.
Chris.
Thank you. Chris Nicholson. I live over at the 17th and Champa at the Boston Lofts, and I've been in downtown since I moved to Colorado. 2 quick things. The first is that this gentleman, with his criminal history and his mental health history, when he was arrested and was not able to be found fit to go to trial, should have been institutionalized rather than left out on the street. We, unfortunately, don't have those facilities in Colorado to take people who are violent and have serious psychiatric issues and put them in a place where they're going to be kept safe from us and us from them. The second thing I'll say is that I feel like we have to distinguish between the individuals who have a violent record and are spending time in downtown versus the broader homelessness mental health issue that we have in downtown. There is a smaller subset of individuals that are known to the city who get arrested on a regular basis. My question really is, what kind of work are you guys doing to be proactive when those individuals who have those violent histories, who have multiple incidents from multiple states, when they're coming into downtown, are we identifying them before they commit a crime so that we know who to look for? Are we using resources like the cameras from our TV, the cameras here, to figure out who you should be paying attention to before something goes wrong, or is it only reactive?
Well, I think there is some proactive nature to the work that we're doing. I think some of what you're suggesting sounds a little bit like facial recognition, which is obviously something that we're not engaged in. But when we do come in contact with individuals that are prone to violence, we do let them know that they are a focus of ours, and that if they don't discontinue their violent ways, that they are going to suffer significant consequences. We do offer them opportunities to, and I think we've been successful in offering people sort of an off-ramp and to address their challenges, whether it's a family issue or a workforce issue. So I do think that we are identifying the challenges of that population that you're talking about. But in terms of surveilling them and seeing when they enter a protected area, we're really not doing that. I don't know that we have the capacity to do that even if we wanted to. But yes, certainly, I think maybe similar to like a violent sexual predator, there is some need to identify the community of someone who is entering into the community as dangerous.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised the competency issue, because that is a very real issue. In the courts, we're dealing with it on the low-level crimes and on the higher-level crimes. It's very hard and challenging to hold that accountability when competency is called into question within our court system. There's not enough system in place. I also want to acknowledge that there are folks that are low level, they don't have a violent crime past, but they have a multiple arrest or low level offense. Does not necessarily mean they will not deteriorate to the point where they do commit a violent act. And I think we do still need to focus on them as well in when we're trying to address behaviors down.
Betsy.
Hi, my name's Betsy Berlin. I live in Colorado. And one thing that's really sticking out to me, and we addressed this earlier, however, the title of this function today is police presence. I don't see police at all, anywhere, all the time. And I'm curious if this includes Union Station. I go around there all day long, every day, myself, my pets, walking here, I didn't see one. I mean, proactive patrol. I hear you that you don't have a lot of staff, but I think that would help with our safety issues if we actually saw the police on patrol. The old-fashioned way that you're standing there, or two of you as a team, I don't see any of it. And I come up to the Spire, I go all over the city on foot. I never see police, unless you're putting out a fire. I get that, but other, there's not positive. I guess, can you comment on that?
I can, only to say that we do have a lot of proactive patrol that goes on throughout the day. Unfortunate that you don't see it, but I mean, I've seen, I don't know how many officers go past here just since we've been sitting here. But
I can't believe you said that. Yeah, all four come together. Going on two and two someplace.
They're not down here.
We've never seen them except today.
Okay, let's give people a chance to talk. Officers that circulate around the Union Station. We have our partners at RTV that provide that security as well. We have off-duty officers that partner with RTV and work RTV as well as all the others on the bus.
That's another question. I'm sorry, but where does your responsibility in RTV's patrol? Is there a line between the two? Are they, I don't know that they carry weapons, you know, what goes on, you know, where does that fall, I guess, you know?
Well, any crime that occurs within the city of Denver is the purview of the Denver Police Department. They have authority on RTV property. Obviously, they call us for assistance, but I mean, they are first responders on RTV property, and they are.
I just have a question in regards to the resources that are available to business operators in the area. Sometimes we don't have time to wait for police response. Obviously, 911 is always going to be our first step. But when we have, you know, individuals in the building that shouldn't be, or even right outside the building that shouldn't be, what should be our safety steps? And do you guys have any sort of, you know, resources available to us in terms of training as what we can do, you know, that's not going to get us in trouble, it's going to make sure everyone stays safe, but we can secure our businesses?
Sure, thank you for that question. Actually, obviously 911 or the non-emergency number is your first response. I would encourage you to connect with our community resource officers. This is a resource that's available to all of you guys. Today I have technician Nabe and Sergeant Munson available to connect with you afterwards, and they can provide your staff, your residents, your homeowner association with safety courses and talk you through exactly what you're asking about. Talk you through scenarios, hey, what do I do here, what if this happens? Obviously, that's free of charge, and that's exactly what they do. They provide training and information to the community. So please get with them.
So we have this lady, sorry, I don't know your name, I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Jane and I live in the Spire. I hope I didn't get through this, but I was bit by a dog at 15 in Chiapa, and the police, 911, nobody showed up for an hour. And so I finally got to the hospital and had a heart attack. And so I got home from that and I'm on bazillion drugs because of it. But a week later, I had another episode, and right in my building, this fire, and the fire department and the ambulance was there in 5 minutes. I don't understand because I was outside on 15th Street. I got no help. But when he was in my building, which is inside, and I got my help in 5 minutes. Can you explain that?
I am really sorry that that happened. I don't have the details as far as what else was going on in the city that day, what was going on in the district, I don't know. We can connect with you afterwards if you want us to look into that.
Okay, we have at least 3 more people, and we're really pushing time, so we'll go really quickly. Sorry, and then I'll get to
My name's
get
Bill,
to you.
and I'm at the Palace Lofts at 15th and Blake. It's been 21 years since I lived down here in April. And my question is, the scenario that you described with the perpetrator, terrible crimes that happened on the mall a couple weeks ago. When Bridges lost contact with him, is it in their protocol to contact UPD? Because we can talk about all the problems down here, and we can talk about all the different levels of security that we have, but if they're not communicating with each other, it doesn't matter, you know? Every agency is their own island. Yeah. It's like going to the doctor and having 3 different doctors, and then none of them talk to each other. You gotta have communication, and until we have that, we're not gonna solve it.
And so I can't speak for Bridges because, as I mentioned, it is a state program. As I was talking earlier about our Roads to Recovery program, we have our coordinated intervention pipeline. So if we ever had a case where we lost a person that we were working with, immediately the call is to DPD. Look out for this person. He's with us. If you find him, contact us. We have those communication lines in place for Roads to Recovery. Unfortunately, it looks like Bridges did not have a communication line like that in place, and that's ultimately how he was.
Well, so is somebody from either DPD or the mayor's office gonna call the state and say, you need to put this in your protocol, that your people, when they lose contact with a dangerous criminal, you know, a repeat offender, they need to contact the police department of the jurisdiction where they, you know, lost contact with. I don't know how it works.
Of course, no,
everybody's got to communicate and talk to each other.
There are broad discussions right now happening with Bridges and the various service partners that were working with this gentleman to ensure that this doesn't happen again. This was a huge wake-up call, not only for us, but for the state as well. And it really did speak to the gaps that need to be filled for the state's intervention process.
Anthony.
I live 17th in Glenarm. I work on Wazee Street, so I walk the entirety of downtown like at least twice a day, a lot of times 4 times a day. And I can actually say, like, in the weeks since the stabbing, I have seen a difference. I mean, I've seen police on the mall, I've seen bicycle patrols and the one that just went by, and, you know, it's just something that we've lived here for 3 years and asked so many times, like, why do you never see a cop downtown? And I just think it's like such a shame and kind of a, you know, black mark that it took people getting like stabbed to death in broad daylight to finally, you know, all of a sudden the switch flips. And, you know, I've seen cops almost every day since then, and it's like, you know, a breath of fresh air. And so I just want to say, like, you know, it's better late than never. Like, we appreciate seeing you guys, and hopefully as the mall, you know, finishes up in our end of the neighborhood, we see you guys up there, and yeah, like, come in the businesses and, you know, get to know people. I mean, I see the same, like, downtown Denver partnership people all the time, the same, you know, I run into the waiter at West on the street or the Target cashier. You know, it's like a small neighborhood, so if you guys have a presence here, like, you'll be seen and it'll be appreciated. And yeah, it's like the one neighborhood that everyone in the city has kind of a stake in. So, you know, if there's one neighborhood where you guys have a visual presence, it should, you know, be the downtown of the city. But yeah, thank you, and yeah, please just keep doing it, you know.
Okay, we're going to take your question real quick, and then I know we're a couple minutes past, and I'm really sorry about that, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anna. I've lived at Union Station for 4 years, and I have a background in data analytics and science, so I do appreciate when you share the statistics about the crime that's been reported in downtown Denver. That is valuable to me, as well as my perception of my own safety here. One of the things I'm really curious about that I think you're uniquely well positioned to answer is how is crime, the data for that being collected? What is the criteria for crime to count towards the crime statistic that you were talking about?
So it is captured in reports. And we actually count victims and not just incidents. So we're actually counting the number of victims. So that's what NIVERS does, is it counts victims of crimes. And that's why I encourage people to do two things. Number one, call the police, because that's the data to mark. And also report the things that are reportable, because again, it helps us deploy our resources and helps us provide, I think, good data, for those types of studies.
I did hear a constituent from District 10 mention that you are only considering a crime reported if you respond to it. Is that true or is that false?
No, no. As long as every call to police is reported, as is every report that we take, whether it's an online report, report that's taken a day later, 2 days, it doesn't matter. It's an immediate report.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'd like to add is on the 911 side, we take in all calls, whether they're 911 calls, non-emergency police calls, text to 911 calls, whether they're fire, EMS based, or sometimes we send all responders, police, fire, and EMS. So that's also by crime category. All those things are measured out. So those are all, and we measure the response time as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, Kristen.
Downtown Denver Partnership, I don't know, whose responsibility is it for all the street lights? Because in the theater districts, I live at the Spire, and that's our convention, the conventioneers that come in. How do you do it? Who's responsibility?
So I wish that was an easy answer, but because what we've come up with as we start to do our own nighttime audits and try to figure out where do we need more lighting and less lighting and fixed versus not fixed. And I think there's some that belong to the city, there's some that belong to Excel, there's some that belong to the actual property owner adjacent. And so each individual light has to be handled as each individual problem. And so when we see one light that needs to just have a bulb replaced, we have to go through a lengthy research project just to figure out who owns it and who can fix it. And that's just the nature of where we are in the city and how long we've been here and how many different people have tried to improve lighting and improve conditions over time. And so that's why the partnership, we do our audits regularly, annually, to make sure that we can make things better or try to fix lights or have other people who are supposed to be accountable, have them accountable for that lighting and making it better.
How about fixing the light first and figuring out?
Yeah, who's responsible for that?
We have a couple more people who'd like to ask. Sure, okay. So first him and then you, I promise. And okay, Dr. Gia.
Dave, going to get into Colfax.
Sorry, I'll let you know.
Kudos to the police officers and a great interaction with them over many, many years. To me, it's a budget issue, priority and budget. A lot of things were brought up, this place doesn't have enough beds for mental health. There's only 1 or 2 star teams for a city of 700,000. There's all these other mental health and other issues where it doesn't seem like the funding's been prioritized or available. So I don't think anyone here can answer it, but I'd love to know what's being prioritized more than the public safety of basically the city and the surrounding area. I know they're throwing money at the new Park Hill, new open, whatever park it's going to be, or whatever benches or whatever. I think there needs to be some serious thought into what the priorities are in the city and where the money's going.
Okay, he left, so, okay.
Just to echo what this gentleman just said, we spent hundreds of millions on immigration in the last year, hundreds of millions, And the city's mental health effort, it's got $6 million. Back to your question, where are the resources?
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm of RFP, and I have a totally different perspective about when you guys talking about police presence in the street. I come from a big city, and I never see any much police in our neighborhood where I come from. The most police I ever saw is in actually Paris. It's like walkout. So when I see the police, I don't feel safe because I don't see maybe something going on. So also, when the police, no police present, as you said, never see police before, is any increased crime? No. So also based on what a lady mentioned about also the police chiefs mentioned about the budget about staffing, also how you're going to increase the stream more about the free from 8 to 8 p.m. The only thing if you're a criminal, you think about would you if that help. Also I think about cost effective because you can't put police in every corner in every time. Because a lot of criminals want to make a crime, it's very radical. So how we can going to do that? Because based on you have to increase not only surveillance, not only staffing, but also how we implement for the high tech, like the AI or something. Because I heard you talking about you still rely on people personally review the camera. But why have you ever put some money or budget to put in an AI system? They actually can, really much better and quicker and more efficient than human beings. So instead of a reporting and surveillance, it's more quick, more efficient. So then also, based on the street, you can actually some of the smart city not only use lighting, since earlier you're talking lighting, they use some kind of smartphone or internet connection, either putting surveillance system or you can put some call button. Instead of relying on people until the victim go to the hospital, you finally realize there's something going on. If there's a lot of people around, passenger around, there's people can help too. So they can call a call button. Even like campus, they have some kind of emergency call button. You don't need to do something because it's very convenient. So you need to really enhance surveillance system, also reporting system. That's very, very important instead of relying on the human being. And based on mental health, I think there should be, I just wonder if there's a state system or federal system for doing like registration. So regardless of high level or low level crime, should be in the system so that people can, whatever the institution they are helping for, they can actually know exactly these people, where are they, what kind of service they have. So and also to know communication gap, so they know exactly where it is. So I think they should need to develop the records. Just like cancer register, they actually have that kind of system. I think that's very important for long term to serve the problem.
Thank you. And I will say that we actually just held an AI summit just a couple of months ago. And so we really are looking at using AI to not replace officers, but certainly make tasks a lot easier and not necessarily reliant on human beings. And particularly as it relates to our camera system. We have a pretty elaborate camera system, and so we're able to connect that to AI system.
Yeah, my name is John Parkinson. I live in Colorado, but I've lived in downtown for many years. That was a great comment, and I think it just makes sense to bring in resources that don't require people, because this is bigger than anyone here. But and I don't want to be negative here, but first comment is that when you do see officers, even the ones down at the RTD area, oftentimes, I don't mean to be critical, but even like this 4 bicycle thing, why wouldn't you just have split in 2, cover more groups? Sometimes you see RTD officers down there, and I get it, it's a boring job, but there'll be 6 from a 4 of them standing around chewing the cud, and I'm thinking, why not cover the area? It's just a comment, not to be negative, but it happens and I see it. The other thing is, as a civilian just living down here in what's kind of a war zone, what should we do to protect ourselves? Should we be carrying mace? Should we be carrying tasers? Or what do we do? Because I tell you, we like to walk to the theater tonight, but my wife here, it's like, should we or shouldn't we? Because every time we do, it's kind of taking our lives. We had a granddaughter down at Thirsty Lion, gunshot, almost shot us. Sitting with, she doesn't want to come down anymore. You know, it's such a shame because it's such a nice city. And it's the diversity we all want to try to promote. But it's going down the crap hole, if you know what I mean. And so, I know you guys are like, well, you know, this is unfortunately why we got Trump in the world now, who's taking away everyone's freedoms. But I'm saying, we have to look at the civil liberties of the people who live here too.
Right.
So I think for legislators, I see they're gone, but, you know, I know you guys are just some random thoughts, but break up the force, like those 4 guys right now, so much you guys say, guys, break into 2. It's X mile distance, you know, it's not a tea party. And then what do you recommend for like people like us? Should we buy like bear spray, or what is the most conventional thing that we should do?
A tourniquet?
Because honestly, I don't want to go to jail if I do something that's bad. Oh, and by the way, one day I was walking through RTD, and there was a clear drug deal going on. I walked up to the RTD officer, and I said, there's a drug deal going on there. They're doing drugs right over there. And he said, well, not much we can do about it. I said, well, you know, this other guy over here has a knife. And he says, listen, buddy, he says, all these homeless people carry a knife. Ever since that day, I'm like, they're all carrying knives for self-defense. So what would the police department say we should carry? I don't want to carry a knife or a gun, but I do want, if something happens, I want to be prepared.
Well, you are legally able to carry things that are legal. You know, a knife is legal under 4 inches, you know. So you can carry that if you want. We don't particularly recommend people carrying weapons just because you have to regularly train with them and that kind of a thing. But personal safety tips apply wherever you are, whether it's downtown, whether it's in Arvada, Lakewood, Aurora. Personal safety tips apply. Obviously, you want to be aware of your surroundings. Don't have your eyes on your phone. Don't have your valuables out and open and things like that. Walk in groups if you can. Walk in areas that are more lighted than others. Those are, I mean, that applies wherever you are.
We do that now, like when we see some, like, you know, okay, that could be trouble. We actually walk, we try to stay 20 feet away, which is kind of sad, but the other question is, like, Cherry Creek doesn't have a homeless scale. Are they part of Denver or are they not part of Denver? Is that a different, how come nothing bad seems to happen there? Is there 2 levels of quality care that we're getting?
No,
It's kind of
there's
weird.
actually more officers assigned to Police District 6 than any other district in the city, even though it's the smallest concentration in the city. That's, again, based on one. And, you know, as we saw yesterday, crime can happen anywhere. Like, I can't remember the last time there was a shooting in Washington Park that happened yesterday. So, yeah, we need presence response to crime that happens anywhere. And obviously we need to, you know, address those concerns that come after that as well. So.
You know, one thing that's not addressed though is also the conventioneers. You know, like, I mean, you hear them in Walgreens, you hear them in places, they don't feel safe. And, you know, I know that the convention center is losing business because of it. I mean, I've been told by my clients, I work in PR events, not to book anything in Denver because of the safety issues. And, you know, I'm from New York. I went to school in the Bronx. I live in Oakland. So, you know, it's not like I'm, you know, I know how to take care of myself and live in a city like this, but I moved to Denver so I wouldn't have to deal with that. You know, I mean, and the conventioneers do not feel safe. That, you know, like they stop you in the street and they're like, where can we go? It's not too far from our hotel. We don't want to eat at our hotel, but we don't want to walk around, especially since what happened. I mean, the woman was, you know, 2 blocks from her hotel.
I want to echo that. I'm an economic developer, recently moved here, and dealing with economic development. And this is a message to the mayor. When I moved from my previous community and they knew what was coming here, everybody says, good luck. Because Denver does not have a good reputation because of what we're talking about. This gentleman described it as a war zone. I have seen things walking from here to OLP that I'm a former military, that I only see in extreme areas. or feel unsafe and people laying, I mean, we were on one of the RTD and the train could not stop because there were people laying completely wasted and it has to move forward so that people can get off the train. I mean, it's a fourth world issue that we have here. It's not a vibrant city like the mayor's.
Yeah, like ask any of the guys the former cops that used to hang out at the Walgreens protecting it, now they have security, so it's gone back to being like, no man's land in there. And that's the one place for the conventioneers to go, their Target and the CVS. And it's, incidents happen every day. It's something like 200 incidents a week, at that Walgreens, and those people don't feel safe, and we're losing, that's also another way, that restaurants, aren't getting business because the conventioneers don't want to leave their hotels.
So we have two hands, Amanda and, Dr. Shia, so sorry. 3 people, there's a lady in the back there. So let's just go 1, 2, 3, if you don't mind, real quick.
And I live in Aspire since 2012, and I have a 5-year-old son there. And my question is it the drugs from your guys' perspective? Like, I've lived here since 2012, and I know a lot happens in our city since then, but it's almost like when you legalized marijuana and then you didn't legalize the other drugs, but like decriminalize them. Is that what you guys think? Like, I don't know. Is that the problem? Can we undo that?
Obviously that's a conversation I have with legislators. I do think that there's an impact that has been felt due to the decriminalization of certain hard drugs. I will say that yes, a lot of our challenges currently are due to the prevalence of drugs in our community, the prevalence of addressing health challenges, and quite frankly, I think that the fact that a lot of people just do not know how to resolve conflict without violence. I think it's pervasive and maybe even promoted by the government. But I think those 3 issues are what result in a lot of violence that we're seeing today in our community.
My name is Dee. I'm a resident of Broken Power. So first of all, I want to express my gratitude for the importance placed on us, and thank you so much for your hard working. So my question is that under our current situation, what are you going to do? Are you going to organize some task force focusing on maintaining our safety, or you just keep the daily routine as now? What's your plan for the future?
Yeah, so
also, sorry, I have one more question. So as far as you concerned, what's the main piece of broken window issues in downtown area right now? And how are you going to fix those broken windows? And then lastly, I want to echo the previous residents. They are talking about the police presence, especially in the center of the city. So research suggested already that police presence has a mixed effect. So yeah, I still want to pay attention to the data-driven to balance the security situation and the public.
No, great question. So thankfully we have experience with data-driven responses to violent crime that we've employed in other areas of the city that have been extremely effective, and not just effective in addressing the violent crime, but doing so in a way that isn't oppressive to the community. I like to call it an investment strategy versus an enforcement strategy. So that includes working with other city partners, other community partners. The areas where we have employed these very successfully, we've been able to see dramatic decreases in crime with fewer arrests. So we don't expect that we'll be able to come in and just make a bunch of arrests and all of a sudden things will be fixed, because that hasn't worked before. We recognize that there are a lot of infrastructure issues and I think economic development issues that I think also need to be addressed that I think our friends in this city are going to be able to help us with. And so I do have a lot of faith that we'll be able to tackle this challenge and be able to do things that can improve the perception of safety, and not just the perception, but the reality of safety in this community and other areas in the city.
Okay, so this very patient person, yes, please ask your question.
I'm a clinical psychologist and dealt with severely mentally ill people since 1980. I'm retired now. But over the course of my career, the mental health system has really been dismantled. There used to be inpatient beds. There used to be day treatment programs. There used to be liaisons in high schools. There used to be, I mean, it's really decimated. And it really isn't enough to have case managers for people who have chronic illness. Like, there could be periods when they're monitored by case managers, but then they get really ill and they have to have a bed. And Denver needs, in Colorado altogether, but they need to build up their beds, they need to build up day treatment programs, and it takes huge amounts of money. And it isn't going, you know, these are lifelong problems for people. And I don't know, we ask for an increase in tax to, you know, to help do them all doing or something. But I think there needs to be recognition that a big part of what we're dealing with is total dismantling of the mental health system. And mentally ill people are on the streets, and it's not enough. It's like having probation officers instead of someone really watched 24 hours a day. And there are people who have periods where they just have to have a bed. And teams that kind of, the case manager and then is connected to someone in a setting that knows that patient when they go back. So anyway, I don't know how we're going to get the money, but it really takes a lot of money.
Yeah, no, thank you for adding that. I just want to level set just to kind of show where the need is right now. The state of Colorado only has 2 inpatient mental health institutions to care for the entire need for the state.
Where?
To put that into perspective, Maryland has around the same population as we do. They have 5. 5 isn't enough for Maryland. 2 is not enough for us. You hit the nail on the head perfectly. We just do not have that mental care infrastructure here in this state. Someone had mentioned earlier some state laws that had been introduced, which reduce the penalty for drug use, for things of that sort. Those laws were passed with good intentions because they felt that the criminal justice system was not treating the needs of these people. The issue is nothing really came in its place. And so now we have a scenario where we've lost much of the enforcement tools that we used to have to help keep our streets clean and safe. And it's going to take a lot of advocacy work, not just here in the city. This is a statewide issue. So something that I would encourage all of you to do is really to reach out to your state legislatures, reach out to state leaders, because this is unfortunately not a problem Denver can fix alone. It's something that we need to make these investments statewide to bring these beds online. So really appreciate you bringing that.
I know you're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, honestly, I'm so sorry, but we have 5 minutes to be out of this room.
No, I know that. I'm just curious.
I wanted to give them a chance if anyone had a closing comment, but we really do have to tear this room down and get it back in its original configuration. Thank you. So I'm so sorry, but if you have questions, write it down on a card and I'll make sure you get an answer. Does anyone like to say anything to close?
Just very, very grateful that you invited us into your space. That's exactly how we have these hard discussions. I appreciate so much that we're being allowed to just answer some of your questions, and we want the conversations to continue. So thank you.
Don't forget, if you have a question, just put it on a card back there.
Be safe.
For sure.
Hi.